Hey, good afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin. Just wanted to bring folks up to date as to what we've been experiencing. Now, a lot of folks may be saying, oh, well, the heavy rain is moving away from the metro area, and that is certainly the case, and more down toward the coast, but eventually going to push offshore. But a lot of folks have also been commenting on the strong winds that we're seeing in the metro area. What's happening is a wake low is what we call it. That is developing. They usually form behind either a strong squall line or a big cluster of very heavy rainfall, and usually occur in areas where we have what's called stratiform rain, where it's just that light kind of drizzly rain behind it. And that is exactly what we have setting up. Heavy, so the rainfall moving out, and kind of in the absence of those strong downburst winds associated with these heavy thunderstorms, you kind of get that absence, and that gets filled in by these strong winds. And we have seen wind gusting up to over 50 miles an hour across the metro area and down toward Houma. So the strong winds will be likely for a little while longer, even as the heaviest of our rainfall is now pushing offshore. And I wanted to widen out just to give you an idea of, even as these heavier storms push south of the coast and we finally see that coming to an end, we're not done with the rainfall, as we still have some overrunning moisture that is coming at us from the west. We have a west to east flow, and that is helping to keep a lot of that rainfall in place. So even as the heavier storms move on, we will still see some rainfall, although models are indicating that much of this will be coming to an end by later this evening and through the night, maybe by about 7, 8 o'clock, most of the rainfall gone. And then we'll get a break, because we are expecting more rain tomorrow and then again on Thursday. So let's kind of update folks as to where the rainfall is at the moment. And we'll start with the North Shore, because we'll kind of work our way north to south. And really north of the lake, we have seen things not nearly as bad as what we saw on the South Shore. And really most of our heavier storms through the midday and afternoons have been on the South Shore. Remember, north of the lake, something we were talking about the last couple of days was a threat of the river flooding. And we'll be kind of reassessing where the rivers stand and what the new forecasts are based on what rain we've seen today. But keep in mind, we're going to see more tomorrow and again on Thursday. So I would just bet on some of those rivers overflowing their banks. Even though they have been falling, we'll likely start to see them coming up. But at least things are a bit more settled on the North Shore than they have been south of the lake. Now, in the metro area, we have finally started over the last hour seeing things settling down a bit. We still have some moderate showers, especially on the West Bank, but at least around the heart of the city, Jefferson Parish, out in the river parishes, things are beginning to settle down. You might find a little pocket of some moderate to maybe even a little bit of heavy rainfall, certainly some lightning strikes still within even this light rainfall, but the heaviest, where we had the hail reports down toward the coast and some of the strong wind gusts, that activity is now more toward the coast, kind of from a line almost now south of Thibodaux, but really from a line around Houma out toward south, so the south of Jean Lafitte. That's where the heaviest of the rainfall is, and that is pushing down to the south. Look at our lightning associated with this kind of band of storms, we could say, that is moving down toward the coast. Haven't really seen much activity around Port Fourchon, or for that matter Grand Isle, but that is all headed your way as this line continues to push down to the south. But as I mentioned, we have what is called a wake low developing, and we've had the winds gusting around much of the area up over 50 miles an hour, because now folks are letting us know, hey boy, the winds are just whipping. And look at the wind gusts, 54 miles an hour at Kenner, 51 mile an hour wind gusts at Lakefront. Not that it's calm on the North Shore, but winds have not been nearly as strong. Winds gusting 41 at Houma. We had seen a wind gust there a little bit earlier of over 50 miles an hour. And certainly as that line of storms pushes farther offshore, we are going to see that wake low moving south as well. So the winds will be increasing even more so from Galliano to Belle Chase and farther south. But the winds gusty at the moment. That's probably the greatest threat around the metro area, as the heaviest of the rainfall is moving on. Now, as far as widespread rainfall totals, it's interesting because widespread, and this is all based on just our observing stations, our official observing stations, we have not seen huge amounts that really have stood out to us. Some of the rainfall totals we have seen, at least at Kenner, just over 2 inches of rain, if my graphic will load here, just over 2 inches of rainfall. And we have had reports of many areas of street flooding. As a matter of fact, we were just talking in our newsroom that we have had some reports of street flooding around the Ormond area. Well, the official total at Reserve, 1.13 and 2.5 in Kenner. Now, in between, that's not to say we may have not seen some areas of over 2-3 inches. And we did have an earlier thunderstorm that had prompted a flash flood warning for parts of Kenner and Metairie that was producing about 3 inches of rain per hour. That was the rainfall rate. So if that storm, in theory, did not move, you would see 3 inches of rainfall in an hour's time. But they don't just sit, they are moving. So we probably saw in some of those isolated areas maybe 2.5 inches of rain accumulation. And you get that in about 45 minutes, that's going to cause some street flooding. And that really has been the main concern over the last several hours, is so far just the more nuisance street flooding, and then kind of problematic in areas that are major intersections. So all of the areas that we know are going to flood in these heavy rain events, just try and avoid them, because even as the rainfall is lessening a bit, you know, it takes some time for just what natural flood drainage we have around here. It just does take some time for all of that to catch up. Some of the totals that we did see on the North Shore, and again, these are only at our observing stations. In between these locations, we likely had far more in some of those. So that's why I always turn to our weather observers to let me know what you saw at your home. A lot of folks in the area have those rain gauges, and I always like to know what you saw, and we can kind of fill in the pieces and many missing pieces from our rainfall puzzle, because we're only getting some isolated locations. It's those in-between numbers I like to see that really gives a far better picture of some of the actual rainfall totals. These may be the official totals, but I like to get our viewers' take on what they saw at their homes. 1.2 at Galliana, obviously in error at Houma, where they're reporting no rainfall. About 3/4 of an inch at downtown, about 9/10 of an inch at Lakefront, and yet Slidell, Bogalusa didn't see much, which is a good thing, because the Pearl had been under that flood warning because of they're under the minor flood criteria at the moment, where it's just overflowing its banks. So we did not want to see any additional rain there, and hopefully what rain we did see on the North Shore doesn't exacerbate the problem too much, because as I mentioned, we are going to see more rain tomorrow as well as on into Thursday morning. So let's take a look at our computer model, and this is our high resolution. I like this one because it usually, does a fairly good job of initializing well. I say that, and it's not really initializing perfectly, because obviously where the rainfall is right now, well, it's not heaviest on the North Shore, not heaviest over the metro area. We can actually edit the data. It's one of the tools that we have available to us here. And we can edit the data and actually move it farther south, so we can kind of get a more realistic picture of where the rain is at the moment. So again, it doesn't have a perfect grasp of the storms at the moment, but we can kind of get a slightly better idea of where the rain is at the moment, and thus where it will be in the next several hours. As I said, most of our computer guidance has been indicating that we will see let me let it update there, okay. And then most of our guidance has been suggesting that most of our rain will be coming to an end as we go through the rest of this evening and tonight. So we will get quite a break. Not to say we won't see any additional rainfall during the kind of early evening hours, but the bulk of the rain will be pushing off of the coast. And then notice we do kind of settle down for the rest of the night tonight. Maybe a few spotty showers. I certainly wouldn't rule out a few isolated showers here and there, but at least a quieter night, which again allows for all the water that we have seen accumulate, drain what normal drainage we can get. The problem now, though, is that the ground is nearly saturated, and so any additional rain is going to immediately run off and start moving back into the streets, which may get started early tomorrow morning. Notice 5:45 tomorrow morning, we may already see some scattered showers developing on the North Shore, and then pushing south as we go through the midday afternoon hours, and then looks like a bit of a break into the night. Then notice this model, and I apologize, some of my pause points here disappeared, but we can kind of go back in time. So this is tomorrow afternoon around 12:30. Maybe another round of some heavy rainfall. Once again, we're under a low risk of severe weather, but the greatest threat, I think, is probably going to be from the strong gusty winds as well as hail. The tornadic risk looks fairly low. We don't have enough wind shear in the atmosphere to create that rotation and spin of the thunderstorms, which is why really we're not focusing on the tornadic threat. It's more of a wind as well as hail threat. We already saw several reports of hail today, and we'll probably see some more tomorrow and maybe on into early Thursday. But notice 12:30 tomorrow, we have quite a bit of rainfall, and at the moment I'm going with 100% coverage. I think everybody will see the rain during the day tomorrow. Fast forwarding in time a bit, I'm just going to kind of scroll through this myself. It looks like we may see kind of a late afternoon, evening settling down of the rainfall. We may see kind of a similar wake low develop as that heavy rain moves out. We may see some gusty winds trailing right behind it as we get into the afternoon and early evening hours of Wednesday, but at least we get a break from the rainfall. Then putting this further into motion, this is 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, so this is tomorrow evening. May start to see some more showers popping back up into the area, and possibly before midnight, rain getting started. And again, this is one model. It's our high resolution model, and as we mentioned, it updates every hour. That's the high resolution rapid refresh model. So we get new data in every hour, and it changes every hour, and sometimes we see more subtle changes based per forecast hour, and sometimes we see more dramatic changes. So this is as it stands right now. We could see some storms around midnight on Thursday. Again, that's not until tomorrow night and Thursday morning. Then it looks like Thursday morning is going to be wet with some storms rolling through the area, and then looks like as a front moves through, we will see things settling down by early Thursday morning. So right now I'm going with about a 60-70% chance of rain early Thursday, but that should be primarily in the morning, and then we get quite a break. We're not done with the rainfall though just yet. This model ends at 10:45 on Thursday. We'll likely see some more lighter but rain on into Friday, and maybe continuing on into the weekend as a couple of cold fronts will be moving through the area. So that is going to be something that we'll watch very, very closely over the coming days, because as I mentioned, we will get the breaks in the rain, but with the rain accumulation so far, ground is saturated, and any additional rain immediately runs off into the streets, any low-lying areas, and does cause some flooding problem, because now we have nowhere else for the rain to go. It can't get absorbed into the soil, as things are, for the most part, fairly saturated, and we are going to see additional rains over the next couple of days. So that's where things stand as of now. Let's go back just real quick before we wrap things up here to live radar. That's it, loads for me here. There we go. Again, heaviest of the rainfall pushing down along the coastline. Still some light to moderate rain left over with some strong gusty winds. We still have some rainfall that is off to our west that'll be moving through, however, not nearly as intense. You may find some pockets of downpours, frequent lightning, maybe even some gusty winds, but these storms are moving, and you're getting plenty of breaks in those showers as they pass through the area. So not nearly as much of a flooding threat from the additional rain that we would see. However, one or two little isolated downpours in ground that is already saturated may cause some minor street flooding, and hopefully that's all we see throughout the course of the day today, is just more of that minor nuisance street flooding for most of us as being the greatest threat to the area as far as any kind of a real severe threat goes for, again, through Thursday morning. So we'll kind of wrap things up there. I was trying to go over to our WWL Facebook page to see if anyone has any questions specifically, if I was not able to answer those for you. Again, so far some of the severe reports that we have had around the area. So far, some of the reports have been of street flooding. We have had a number of reported power outages, which we'll update on our newscasts, and the hail that we've had reported at Bayou Blue and down toward Cutoff. We've had other reports of hail, but a lot of that has been more south of the city, lower Bayou parishes, and down as you get toward the coast with these storms. And these are going to be the storms that still have that hail threat, but that is quickly moving off with most of the frequent lightning as well. And boy, the lightning has been incredible. So a lot of folks, let's see, somebody saying we thought would look to be a tornado in Montague. Very possible. This is all embedded within some very heavy, blinding rain. Certainly some strong gusty winds, and wind damage is wind damage, whether it was caused by a weak tornado or a just strong straight line winds. But it doesn't look like, based on what we're seeing, Trish, it doesn't look like anything down toward the Montague area. And this was only a minute ago, so we can go back over to our radar and see around the Montague area if we had anything that even, or just down toward the coast in general, if we had anything that kind of resembled a tornado. I'm going to switch over to our reflectivity, or excuse me, our velocities, to see what the winds are doing in those storms. And man, it doesn't really look like anything. It's certainly very strong winds associated with this line as it pushes down south, and even on the back side of it. But yeah, nothing that's looking like it was tornadic, but certainly it doesn't take much to get a little directional change in the winds and something kind of appears to be a tornado, but it doesn't look like that was the case. A lot of, Brad is saying, low roads in Folsom flooding, a lot of street flooding in the Morgan City area. Winds in Marrero have been horrible. Yeah, I mentioned we were going to have those strong winds across much of the metro area due to that wake low that has developed. So a lot of folks, not really specific questions, but providing us with the much needed information for your area, which we genuinely appreciate, because we need all those eyes on the ground to let us know what is actually happening. About a minute ago, hail about pea size in LaRose from Mary. Thank you so much for reporting that. And as I mentioned, we did have numerous reports of hail. Some of the video that I've seen so far were about pea, maybe slightly larger, pea to penny size hail. Usually not large enough to do any kind of major damage, but still enough to get your attention. And I've seen one video that I shared via social media where a woman is just literally picking up the hailstones with her hands. It's just piled up. So we did have some decent hail storms within those storms as they pushed farther south. So again, as it does look like the real severe risk is starting to wind down as that line pushes farther and farther offshore. We'll kind of wrap things up for now, but as I mentioned, it'll be something that we'll have to watch once again tomorrow as well as Thursday morning, as we are anticipating more heavy rainfall. Risk of severe weather at the moment for our area tomorrow is the low, 1 out of 5. Not looking at a severe risk at the moment for Thursday morning. But over the next couple of days, we do have a more elevated risk of flooding, and we have had some flash flooding. Hopefully it's nothing more than just street flooding and does not get into any homes, businesses, or whatnot through the rest of the next couple of days. But this was only round 1 of the heavy rainfall. Round 2 during the morning and midday afternoon hours tomorrow, and then again early on Thursday. That Thursday rain, based on our model, may get started well before daybreak, possibly getting things started around midnight and then continuing through the morning hours. Then we get quite a bit of a break and more light to scattered showers over the next couple of days going into Friday and the weekend, but also much cooler temperatures, which we'll detail in our later newscast on Eyewitness News at 5, 6, and 10. If no one else has any other questions, I feel like I'm doing a class here if nobody else has any questions. But again, I just want to, we can at least communicate a little bit easier with viewers when we're doing it on social media. So that's why I do like to make sure that no one has any last minute questions. Any questions or comments. And again, we genuinely really appreciate all the reports of hail, strong winds, even if it's nothing more than, hey, we're getting some strong winds in LaRose. that helps us out. That just kind of lends credence to what we're seeing on radar. Again, we don't have sensors literally all over the place, but we do have viewers, and you folks are able to tell us what is actually going on. The best we can do is with radar and some of the weather stations that we do have access to, but usually residents can tell us a little bit more than even those weather stations are able to do. And so it does look like things are finally settling down. But as I mentioned, we still have some fairly strong gusty winds in the city down toward the coast. And as this line pushes south, that wake low is going to be moving south as well. So even as the heaviest of the rainfall will be wrapping up in our lower bayou parishes, expect some strong gusty winds and still lingering rainfall. Again, we're not done with the rainfall just yet. We'll have a complete look at our forecast coming up on 9 Witness News at 5 and 6. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin.